Hello there, I'm Jack, and I welcome you to Phantom Chamber, a safe space of dread and distress. Feel free to stick around. In folklore, the Michigan Dogman was allegedly witnessed in 1887 in Wexford County in Michigan. The creature is described as a 7-foot-tall, amber-eyed bipedal canine-like animal with the torso of a man and a fearsome howl that sounds like a human scream. According to legends, the Michigan Dogman appears in a 10-year cycle that falls on years ending in the number 7. Sightings have been reported in several locations throughout Michigan, primarily in the northwestern quadrant of the Lower Peninsula. This creature was unknown to most of the modern world until very late in the 20th century. It is said to have been stalking the area around the Manistee River since the days when the Odawa tribes lived there. This, the season of the eerie and unexplained, the legends and other shared tales told around campfires and passed down from generation to generation to inspire terror or to warn others of malevolent creatures that may live among us. Recently, a trucker named Joe Barger recalled his experience with what he believes was the Dogman. Traveling through the Manistee National Forest 5 years ago, he had an experience with a creature at the heart of one of the state's most popular urban legends, the Michigan Dogman, and it changed his life forever. Even if you don't believe what I'm saying is truthful, it might be something you can draw on in the future in case you ever do have an experience with a Dogman, which is an advantage I never had. He explained he thinks it's important for Michigan residents to be aware of what he saw. Barger, a 6-year Army veteran, was transporting a 43,000-pound load of paper from a mill in northern Michigan through the forest on his typical route when he encountered the Dogman on an evening in June. He said he had never heard of the cryptid before the incident, which took place within 15, 20 seconds at most. I would swear, as a Christian on a Bible, that this is all 100 factual truth. Leading up to the encounter, Barger realized while driving he had an air leak, wanting to fix it before he got too far into the forest. He stopped to look at it. He found the air leak by the back brake chamber on the trailer. With the materials to fix it, Barger positioned himself underneath the trailer and began to get a bad feeling. I was hearing a vocalization that wasn't natural, Barger said. It wasn't a sound I had ever heard before. I was looking around and I saw some shadowing in the wood line, but there was plenty of light to see. It was nowhere near getting dark yet. I was in bear country, so I perceived the shadowing to be a black bear at the time. When he realized he could be near a black bear, Barger got back into the truck and checked out the air, which was good to go. It held and took me not even 5 minutes to fix, he recalls. The woods continued to give Barger a bad feeling, but he thought everything was normal until he started driving again. He checked his driver's side mirror for any traffic on the 2-lane road at the bottom of a hill. There was no traffic. As he started going up the hill and looked in his right side mirror, he saw it was darker than it should be. There was a wolf head the size of my window, and my windows were down. Barger continues. He was trotting along next to me, and I was about 20-25 miles per hour at that point, and he was stooping down on 2 legs, looking down inside of my cabin. I'm at 9 feet tall in my seat. His hands were coming up, scratching my windowsill. On my door handle, I could hear his claws. Time slowed down. Barger said, I thought I was in like an alternate reality or something, because a creature like this don't exist in a reality I've ever known of. I have heard of Bigfoot, and I know those to be something that is talked about. This is a whole different thing altogether. Bigfoot has nothing on the Dogman, according to Barger. It has a lot of sharp teeth, and the teeth on this thing were like brilliant white. Barger claims 3-inch long fangs bottom and top, pure black pointed ears. It had yellow eyes, with human-like hands probably 14 inches across. It was at least 10 feet fall from how it was stooping into my cabin. His yellow eyes were darting all over the place and looking at me. How this creature looked was mad and determined to get to me, Barger continued. He was sneering. He wasn't making any noises vocally, but the looks he was giving me and the intelligence in his eyes was telling me, I'm here to get you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Barger thought about trying to roll up the window, but he decided to focus on keeping the truck on the road. That is when he remembered his handgun. Barger pulled his .45 Colt strapped to his waist and took 2 shots at the creature. He instantly went down, Barger said. I was looking at him as he was sliding into the weeds. I was at almost point-blank range, so I'm pretty sure I got him through the eye orbit. His head was huge. Everything on this animal was black except his teeth and his eyes. I wasn't really panicked, but it's the scaredest I've ever been in my life. Barger, assuming the creature to be dead, wanted to turn around and check on the carnage to make sure he didn't lose his mind. About a mile up the road, he found a spot large enough to turn his truck around in. I wanted to make sure I killed it, he said. I wanted to know more about what just occurred. As Barger was coming back down the hill, at most 5 minutes after shooting it, it was gone. In its place was a Jeep and 2 people. Barger said he was concerned about people being somewhere potentially dangerous, so he stopped to talk to them. They give me a story that they were watching a few bears fighting each other. I was worried about them being outside with what had just happened, but I didn't want to let them know what I had just done, so I left. Barger thinks because the other people claimed to have seen 2 bears, that maybe there could be more dogmen in the area beside the one he shot. I was really in shock for a good while, Barger recalls. I was still driving the truck, and I didn't even know how I got back. I shouldn't have been driving the truck in this state of mind, but I wasn't going to stay around or park anywhere near there. It was the most terrifying thing I think anybody could go through. Worse than even any combat situation. Because at least you know what you're dealing with there. Barger had nightmares for 6 months to a year on and off. The nightmares got less prevalent as time went on, and he doesn't deal with them anymore. I'm in a lot better shape now, and I thought it was important to get this information out. That's why my story is out now. It just took me this long to get with the right people that I know have my back. Additionally, Barger claims the federal government is keeping the existence of the Dogman quiet. After I got better from the nightmares, I had a family member tell me I should get this out to the public, Barger said. So I talked to one podcaster that is popular in the cryptid space, and I didn't want to be out there publicly. So he took notes and narrated my story about 4 years ago. 3 months later, Barger said he was detained at a scale house by state police to wait for federal authorities. When federal authorities, first showed up, they were very intimidating and angry. I didn't know what was going on. They said, "You killed one of our assets, and this is how things are going to go down." Barger knew the only thing he killed in the last year was the creature. This was their property, and they were mad that I killed it and they were trying to get me to stop talking about it. They probably knew who I was from the narration story. In his testimony, Barger said the federal authorities threatened him, confiscated his gun, and shut his bank account off for some time. I stopped talking about it until recently, he said. This is probably another tool in their toolbox for military operations of some kind, and if they don't keep it under wraps, it won't be a useful tool anymore for them. The Dogman has been on the minds of Michigan folk for the last 130 years, starting in 1887. That's when two lumberjacks saw a creature they described as having a man's body and a dog's head. According to legend, the Dogman appears to humans in a 10-year cycle that falls on years ending in the number 7. However, despite the hundreds of witness testimonies each year, many people believe the so-called eyewitnesses made up their stories after hearing a specific song. The song was initially meant to be a parody. However, after hearing the song, the callers started to share their testimonies, one after the other. Steve Cook's song, The Legend, started the avalanche of calls from listeners who said that they had encountered a similar creature. In the next weeks after Cook first played the song, it was the most requested song on the station. Over the years, Cook has received more than 100 reports of the creature's existence. Cook later added verses to the song in 1997 after hearing a report of an animal break-in by an unknown canine at a cabin in Luther, Michigan. He re-recorded it again in 2007. These callers might have had some sort of a false memory syndrome. Or, more terrifying thing is, they simply didn't want to be ostracized and alone while sharing their true experience. Speaking of the song, it's quite a cool and gloomy piece of art. Take a listen.
So the officer and I went out there to take a look at it. You know, he just tried to chew in around the doors. And you could see a dog print, you know, alongside the window there. And so it was, you know, obviously a dog.
Summer morning in early June is when the legend began. At a nameless logging camp in Wexford County where the Manistee River ran. 11 lumberjacks near the Garland Swamp found an animal they thought was a dog. In a playful mood, they chased it around till it ran inside a hollow log. A logger named Johnson grabbed him a stick and poked around inside. Then the thing let out an unearthly scream and came out and stood upright. None of those men ever said very much about whatever happened then. They just packed up their belongings and left that night, were never heard from again. It was 10 years later in 97 when a farmer near Buckley was found. Slumped over his plow, his heart had stopped. There were dog tracks all around. 7 years past the turn of the century, they say a crazy old widow had a dream of dogs that circled her house at night, that walked like men and screamed. In 1917, a sheriff who was out walking found a driverless wagon and tracks in the dust like wolves had been stalking. Near the roadside, a 4-horse team lay dead with their eyes open wide. When the vet finished up his examination, he said it looked like they died of fright. In 37, a schooner captain said several crew members had reported a pack of wild dogs roaming Bowers Harbor. His story was never recorded. In 57, a man of the cloth found claw marks on an old church door. The newspaper said they'd been made by a dog. He'd have had to stood 7'4". In 67, a van load of hippies told a park ranger named Quinlan they'd been awakened in the night by a scratch at the window. There was a Dogman looking in and grinning. In 77, there were screams in the night near the village of Bel Air. Could have been a bobcat, could have been the wind. Nobody looked up there. Then in the summer of 87, near Luther, it happened again. At a cabin in the woods, it looked like maybe someone had tried to break in. There were cuts around the doors that could only been made by very sharp teeth and claws. He didn't wear shoes because he didn't have feet. He walked on just 2 paws. So far this year, no stories have appeared. Have the Dogmen gone away? Have they disappeared? Soon enough, I guess we'll know, because this is the time to fear. For another 10 years has come around. The 7th year is here. And somewhere in the Northwoods darkness, a creature walks upright. And the best advice you may ever get